And we are back. Welcome back into the Pigskin Cafe. My name is Hampton Sipper, and I will be your host this evening. And joining me tonight, I've got both of them. I've got both the Haneys tonight. I've got the correspondent at large himself, Graham Haney, and the Reddit extraordinaire, Chase Haney. Guys, how we doing? And are we ready to talk a little SEC East?
Hey, doing well. Graham, how about you? How are things in Tennessee?
Hey, making it big, living large, having a good time doing it. So glad to be back with you guys, back with Pod.
SEC East country right there.
That's right.
It is SEC East country, and what a segue that was, Chase. We are going to be talking about the SEC East tonight. We talked about the West last week, and we even broke down the Alabama Crimson Tide. So if you haven't checked out those two podcasts slash videos, please go over to our YouTube channel and give us subscribe, hit that notification bell, give us a like, give us a comment, and we're putting out content weekly. So we appreciate all the support we have gotten. I think the 4 videos we put out on YouTube combined with our podcast are some of the highest we've ever had. So we appreciate that support, and it really encourages us to keep going. I mean, we're going to keep doing it anyway because we love talking one another about football, but we do appreciate you listening. Now, guys, let's get to the nitty gritty, which is the SEC East. So it's very much like the West in that I think there's a clear number one at the top, and that is Georgia, the defending national champions who lost a lot. They had 15 draft picks taken in the 2021 draft, a draft record that had stood, I think, since like 2002 Miami, which we all know how stacked those teams were with Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer. So Georgia is losing a lot, especially defensively. I mean, you got Nakobe Dean gone, Trayvon Walker, number 1 pick, gone, Channing Tindall gone, Jordan Davis gone. I mean, they lost a lot. Lewis Seen, another first round pick, gone. So I mean, they're hurting on the defensive end as far as experience. Now, that does not mean they are devoid of talent, but the experience that they had on that side of the ball that made them so effective, a lot of it is gone. Now, they are returning Jalen Carter. Hey, Duncan. They are returning Nolan Smith on the outside. They're returning Kelly Ringo, star cornerback. But other than that, there's a lot of unproven names that probably a lot of Georgia fans know, but the average fan does not, because they just haven't had the opportunity to get on the field and contribute because of how elite their defense was last year. Now, on offense, you got Stetson Bennett back, the mailman, as they call him, coming back for, I believe, his 3rd year starting. I thought he had a very solid year last year. Didn't lose some ball games, managed his way to a national championship game, even made some big throws in that game, especially that one deep downfield in the 4th quarter, to, I think, number 6 over Kyrie Jackson. I mean, really impressive throw by him. They're returning arguably the best tight end room in the country and in recent college football memory, with Brock Bowers, who's a freakazoid, Darnell Washington, and then Eric Gilbert, who, if you remember on our first pod, when we were the Trojan Tailgate podcast, but we picked breakout players, and Eric Gilbert at LSU was my number 1 offensive breakout player in the SEC, him and Will Anderson. And unfortunately, Mr. Gilbert has yet to really break out. So maybe this is the year where he get in. Maybe this is the year where he kind of establishes himself as a household name in college football. He's had a lot of off the field issues, but maybe his mind and his body are right and he's ready to contribute. A receiver, they've got Kiers Jackson, who's a senior, very solid player. Lad McConkey, who, he was a nice player for them last year. I don't think they have elite talent on the outside. Running back, they've got Kenny McIntosh coming back. Really like him as a player. Kendall Milton, another player that I think he's going to be a junior this year. But they are lacking a little bit of depth in that running back room just from some injuries that they sustained in fall camp. But Georgia is always going to be a run-first team until Kirby Smart proves me otherwise and actually evolves his offense into more of a spread pro hybrid. because it's very much smash mouth. Now they have evolved a little bit over the past few years with Todd Monken at the helm, kind of calling plays and coordinate that offense. But Georgia's going to be a really good team, and I think they're clearly the number one team in the East. Like Alabama in the West, they're head and shoulders above everyone else. But the conversation to me starts when we get to talking about who the second best team in the SEC East is. So, Graham, I'm going to start with you. Who do you think that team is?
Yeah, I totally agree with you that there is a clear number one team, and that is Georgia. But unlike the West, the SEC East to me is tiered. There's one team that's the best, Georgia. Then there's several teams that are up there in contention. Kentucky, Tennessee, maybe in South Carolina if they take a step forward. We know we've heard a lot of heat from Kentucky, but I think the second best team in the East has to be Tennessee. I think with Josh Heupel's offense, Hendon Hooker at quarterback, when he's healthy, that Tennessee offense is going to be hard to stop. And when you look at it, Vanderbilt, not a whole lot better. I mean, and I would know because I'm close to them. Florida, I mean, I think this is a rebuilding year for them. I think that it's going to take some time to make adjustments, getting new coaching staff in, getting players ready to go. But Tennessee outperformed, I would say, most people's expectations last year, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, Tennessee was putting up 60 points, regularly. They were that typical NASCAR offense. And I think that when you look at it, Tennessee's returning most of their production from last year. Like I said, if Hendon Hooker is healthy, the Triple H's, then Tennessee's going to be nasty. Tennessee will have its identity, throwing the football, and they're going to make a lot of noise in the SEC East. Chase, I want to hear who you think is that second best team. Are you going with Kentucky or maybe Spencer Rattler and South Carolina Gamecocks?
Yeah, and I think you're pretty wise to say, Kentucky, Tennessee, it makes sense for them to probably take that step, get in contention. Who's going to win that second spot? So I think you're really wise to say that. I don't think that that's anything that really anybody would disagree with. I think that what I could see happening is this division always seems to have that, hey, there was that team that was supposed to and then didn't. They dropped a game they weren't supposed to drop, and then all of a sudden the Mizzou sneaks in, somebody else sneaks in. I will say that I am excited about this South Carolina team. And for the sake of the pod, and I know this is a hot take, I think that this team has the makeup to win that number 2 spot by just how they have. I think that Shane Beamer has done a fantastic job coming in there, casting vision for what he wants to see his program become and what he's willing to do to get it there. I think you see this with the recruiting that's starting to just kind of snowball. I think that the players are picking up on what he is trying to cast there, because like you said, you've got Georgia there who runs this kind of smash mouth. And I think that what you're seeing in this division are the Tennessees, the Kentuckys, these teams, the Missouri, the teams that are like, hey, we're going to kind of almost go to that, not like a Big 12 football, but just like we're going to throw the ball a ton and we're going to build this on offense because Georgia's going to probably out-recruit us on the defensive front. So I like their approach. I think that in a sense, if you believe in momentum, I would say that South Carolina, they have a couple of favorable matchups at home. They play Tennessee at home. They play Missouri at home. They play A&M at home.
Georgia at home.
Georgia at home. They've got to be careful with. It really stinks they play Arkansas right off the gun the second week. But that's kind of the thing. Is it's like if you're talking about that number 2 team, they're not winning out. They're dropping one of those games, and it's like, all right, if we drop Georgia and Arkansas, but then we're better than Florida. We can grab Kentucky. Whenever they come, when we go to Kentucky, we beat Tennessee. I know that sounds really good in theory, but that's just kind of a team that I think could be sneakily. Just all of a sudden we look up and, man, South Carolina's playing a fun brand of football, and they've won one game they're not supposed to win, and then they got some home matchups that go their way. Hampton, what do you think? There's plenty of teams right up there that make sense at number 2. Who do you think actually comes away with it come the end of the season?
Well, I like both of your picks. I like South Carolina for all the reasons you mentioned. I'm a big Shane Beamer fan. Casting the vision, creating a culture, being able to recruit at the level he has. I think he's done fantastic to make a bowl game without having a really uh, solid quarterback. I mean, he was playing a wide receiver at quarterback, walk-ons from off the street last year, and they still made a bowl game. They beat Auburn at the end of the year, and then they spanked North Carolina in that Mayo Bowl. So I'm really impressed with him. I think Spencer Rattler is going to have a really good year. I think Shane Beamer is going to be able to foster a relationship with him that allows him to be himself, allows him to grow and maybe mature a little bit because for some reason, and it might be on Rattler and it might be on Lincoln Riley, but those two didn't click. And I think Beamer was there at Oklahoma, I believe, when Rattler came initially to Oklahoma. So they got that, previous relationship. And I think he's going to be instrumental to his development. I think defensively, they're going to be well coached. I think they've got a really good tight end who's going to contribute to them or contribute for them. I think they'll have a good running game. My issue with them is they lack depth, and that has nothing to do with the job Shane Beamer's done, but it's his second year on the job, and it takes a while. It takes a few recruiting cycles to build the depth you need in the trenches on the offensive line and defensive line to win in this league. And with that schedule you talked about, I mean, first game's a gimme, but then you play at Arkansas, like you mentioned. I think that's an L. Georgia at home, I know a lot of people are picking them to pull the upset there. I just don't quite see it. I think it could be a dangerous game for Georgia, but I just don't see them beating them in week 3. Then you go at Kentucky, A&M, Missouri, Florida, Tennessee, Clemson. I mean, it's a difficult schedule, and I just think a few injuries here or there is going to be just very detrimental to that team. So they're not going to be my number 2, but I will talk about them in another aspect later in the show. They're a pick of mine for something else that we're going to discuss. For Tennessee, love your analysis, Graham. Hendon Hooker, elite, top 3 quarterback in the SEC. I mean, I don't think people realize last year he had 30 touchdowns and 3 picks, threw for over 3,500 yards, I believe, was really effective in that Heupel offense. And I don't even believe he started the year. I think they started the year with Joe Milton, the transfer from Michigan. So Hooker didn't even really get in there until game 2 or 3, and then that train got rolling. I remember they went to Missouri and blew the doors off them. So their offense is going to be high-flying. You've got Cedric Tillman, a receiver, who's a really good player. He's on the Biletnikoff watch list. You've got Brew McCoy from USC, the transfer, who's really talented, who the eligibility issues with him are kind of odd. And I think not very clear as to whether he's going to be able to fully play this year, because I know USC was kind of causing a little bit of a ruckus with him transferring there. But if he plays, that adds another element of their offense. They've got their starting tailback back from last year. And they're not going to run the ball a lot, but they're going to run the ball just enough to kind of keep you honest. And when they go hurry up, going to be able to do it and catch you. Your defense is not going to be aligned, and they can get, quick, almost cheap 4 to 5 yard gains. And then that sets up the pass. And so I think they're going to be dynamic from that. Defensively, that's where I draw the line, and I just don't think they're going to be very good again this year. Do I think they'll be better than last year? Sure. Doesn't take much to be much worse than they were last year. But at some point in this league, you got to be able to stop people. You can't just outscore your way to second in the East. So that is why my pick is going to be the same pick I had last year, the Kentucky Wildcats. Mark Stoops is the top 3 coach in this league. I think it's him, or I think it's Nick, Kirby, then him. I think that highly of Mark Stoops and the culture he's been able to build, and no one's done more with less than him at Kentucky, where his counterpart John Calipari has done less with more than anybody in Division I sports, in my opinion. I think Will Levis is going to take a huge leap. And my big worry with them this year is wide receiver. I think they lost Josh Ali. They lost Wandale Robinson, who was the number one target last year. So I'm anxious to see kind of who steps up in their place to give Will Levis a good target or some targets to throw the ball and really stretch the ball downfield. We know they're going to be able to run the ball. Graham, you and I talked about that in our last episode. They've always been able to run the ball, even though Chris Rodriguez, their star running back, is suspended the first 3 to 4 games of the year. That's a little worrisome for me, but they've got a transfer coming in that I think is going to do an effective job for them. And then defensively, I think they're going to be solid, well-coached as they always are. And they always seem to have 1 or 2 players that come out of nowhere that you hadn't heard of before the season starts. But by midway, they start making plays and become all SEC type guys by the end of the year. So Kentucky is my number 2. And before we move on, I kind of want to kick it back to you, Graham. What do you think of Kentucky going in this year? And do you agree that they can still challenge for that number 2 spot despite losing some key contributors on offense?
Yeah, I definitely think they can still, play down for down with Georgia if they, play their cards right. I think that a returning Will Levis will hopefully make strides in getting better. There's, even some mock drafts that had him going first overall, which it could be laughable. But I think that Kentucky, Hampton, like you said, they always have guys, especially on defense, that you're like, I just don't know who their star is on defense. And you get to week 10, you're like, man, this guy's he's got 100 tackles already. I mean, he's just all over the field. And it just always seems to be that. And then there's an offensive lineman. They're like, this guy's just a baller. It was Sternberg a few years ago. It's like, this guy's just nasty. And so I think that Kentucky, it hurts that Chris Rodriguez will be suspended, but we know that it doesn't take a star running back for them to get yardage, make plays, get a first down, and move on. I think that Kentucky's system will live out, will be fine. It'll be one of those things where it might work out okay. That means we got a healthy Chris Rodriguez coming back week 5, week 6, ready to take on teams like Georgia and South Carolina and Florida. Eventually, I don't know what their schedule looks like, but you're going to play most of those dogs later on in the year, and so you'll have him back fully healthy, ready to go. And I think you're totally right on that, Hampton. Kentucky's one of those teams that I think we know what we're going to get out of Kentucky, and that's why I was a little bit higher on Tennessee, because I could see the flashes of like excellence almost in their offense, and I could see if they make another step like they did last year, I could see Tennessee being that second best team. Whereas we know with Kentucky's going to be they're going to be 9-3, 10-2, 8-4, and to me, I was looking for a team. Who's the team in the SEC that could be 11-1, and their only loss be to Georgia, and that's why I kind of thought of Tennessee.
And one more point I want to make on Kentucky before I kick it back to Chase. Well, actually, 2 points. They get Georgia at home this year, which I think is huge. So they're going to be able to spring the upset on them potentially, have the home crowd advantage and all that. Another thing I want to note, though, they're losing 3 O-linemen from last year. That's something to monitor. Now, they got a kid from I think he played at IMG last year, Keontae Goodwin. And he's a really impressive player, 5-star guy. If he comes in and is able to secure one of those 3 spots, upside out of the wazoo, I think that can play a big benefit for them kind of going into the year. Chase, what are your thoughts on Kentucky?
Man, I think that Kentucky's one of those teams that does not fall into the category like a lot of these SEC East teams of they are trying to build something. Kentucky is now reaping what they've been sowing over the past, just years and years of work of being that like almost laughing stock of Vanderbilt. Like they just never had even the year to hang their hat on. And man, they're just getting a chance to sit back and again, they're working hard, but like you said, they're still not really getting that 5-star guy. They're getting the 3-star that they're developing into like turning them into NFL quality players, like you said, all SEC, which is really, really impressive. I think that's, like you said, is that coaching job more impressive than hey, you go to LSU and not like, I mean, of course you win a national championship. That's impressive. But when you're getting 5-star recruits, then the outcome is pretty up in the clouds of what you can do there. We're talking dynasty level. And I think that Stoops is getting to the point where it comes down to, Graham, like you said, can he put together one of those, hey, this year we won every game except for when we played Georgia. We lost that one. But then it's like, when are we taking that step of, it would be awesome if it was this year where they put together that season of, hey, Georgia graduated a lot of talent, and this is the year. And it might be one of those things that when you're playing the game, they are taking 3 stars, turning them into great players. You got to catch Georgia at one of those kind of seasons that they're not as good. I think this could be one of those years. I think Kentucky, why not us,
If not now, when? If not this year, if this year is not the year that you beat Georgia, when are you going to do it?
Yes.
I want to say that they're going to beat Georgia, but I need to kind of see it play out and how Georgia maybe evolves on offense. If they become a little more high-flying on offense, a little more explosive to compensate for the lack of experience they have on defense, my mind might change. But I like Kentucky. I think Will Levis is going to make a huge leap. And I'm excited to see what they do this year. Graham, you got anything else on Kentucky?
I just looked up their schedule, and Kentucky and Georgia played the second last week of the year. So we should get both these teams when they're playing their best ball. I mean, we know that's what good teams do. They play best at the end of the year. So we will be able to have time to see how Georgia stays along the year. What does Kentucky do with replacing guys? And so I feel like we'll have a pretty good, not guess, but we'll have a pretty good prediction of how this game's going to go, by week 5. If we know they're going to play at the end of the year, we're going to be able to know whether this might be a year that Kentucky could take them on. If not, then Georgia will still reign supreme.
Hey, Graham, kind of like what we were talking about. It's like, hey, Kentucky, do they have the better quarterback? Like, they finally have kind of their guy. It's not this year. Graham, it's kind of one of those things. Let's say that they still lose to Georgia this year. Where does the Stoops train go from this? Is it like, hey, we're looking for this guy's job? He's kind of that, like, he can't take the next step. We're looking for the guy who can. Not that they're running him out the door, but is this the peak of his career, like this season, and what he does this season, or is the best still yet to come? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's Will Levis has the tools to be a great quarterback, potentially even a first-round quarterback. I mean, he's got the mobility to extend plays. He's got the arm to make the throws necessary. But one thing that I forgot about Kentucky this whole time is their offensive coordinator last year went back to the Rams to be the OC.
Liam Cohen.
Yeah, so he is not there, and they hired Rich Scangello, something like that. It's pretty bad.
Who's that?
Yeah,
never heard of him.
For the family.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what I'm saying? Hey,
Yeah.
For the family.
So I think that'll really show Will Levis's ability to adapt and change, and even show his pro potential more than it might his college potential. What can he do in one off season, changing coaches, and perform that next year? I think it would have been big for him to keep Liam Cohen around, but obviously the grass is greener on the other side. So we'll definitely keep track of Will Levis.
Well, and I think his banana and mayo and his mayo craze could maybe make a huge jump this year and really add to his production on the field. That is the grossest thing I think I've seen any college athlete do, his obsession with mayonnaise. But I digress. Guys, I think we'll cut it there for our talk about the second best team in the SEC East. We'll be back in our next video talking about some sleeper teams, maybe the rest of the East, the bottom 3, who we think can be the best out of those. But thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Pigskin Cafe. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on social media at the Pigskin Cafe. Hit a subscribe button, hit the like button, and hit that notification bell. The Pigskin Cafe will be closed for now, and until next time, chew on that.